welcome here live from the exhibition floor at the 2015 Esomar Congress in Dublin. As you've just learned, Dublin is a place where there's about an Irish pub for every 100 people, and that is something you have to miss out on, unfortunately. So what we made for you this morning, and tomorrow also, is that we have exclusive content for you right here at the exhibition floor. We have about 6 different shows, each of them with a very different theme, where I will be joined on this table with very specific guests. This morning, in a minute, we're going to talk about the value of research and how we can improve that and how we can prove that to the business owner. Later today, during the lunch break, we talk about inspiring methodologies, and we'll actually have a Dragon's Den, where you learn the latest and the greatest about how to do your research. And at the end of today, by the time the Americas wake up, we talk about cross-media measurement. Well, there's much more to come tomorrow as well. You'll find all about it if you scroll down on the website. My first guest, I'm very honored to welcome here in the studio, is Niels Schillerwaard from the Esomar Council, and I'm going to talk about some of the challenges that this industry is facing. Niels, please join me.
Good morning.
Welcome, and congratulations on this wonderful conference.
Thank you.
Can you explain with us a bit? We've been reading in Research World an editorial that this industry is facing some major challenges. What is happening?
Well, a lot is happening. First of all, we're an industry that is data rich, but insights poor. And so there's a lot of, I would say, other companies from technology, that are coming into our space, yep, from the digital area, and that are doing things that we used to be doing.
Yeah. They collect an enormous amount of data,
yes, an
automatically.
Enormous amount of data. Everything is automated. Everything is behavior-based, where we used to be looking at a lot of people self-reporting, yeah, what they did. So it's supposedly more accurate. The big problem with it, I think, is that those companies are not skilled to make sense out of those data. So they are data rich, but insights poor. And that's, I think, where researchers come in, is we've been trained to understand humans and to put the insights around that rather than just having the observations is what we are facing right now. But it's an interesting challenge.
Exactly. And what do research professionals who are watching us right now, what do they need to do? What is your message? What do you hope we move towards in the future?
Oh, good question. Personal view. I think we need to be more creative in how we deal with data. I think we need to design our market research as a product. And my view is we need to treat research as content, insights as content, just like our colleagues in marketing do. They have content marketing and they have a program, they communicate about it. We should do that too. We're not doing that. We're a little bit shy in doing so, and I think that's one.
Can you elaborate a little bit on that, what that will look like? So yeah, how will I start to use my data as content?
Yeah, well, you first of all make a program. You look at, it's all about, for me, extending the shelf life of research, having it used over and over and over again. So it could be spreading our data by means of apps, by means of videos, by means of other things than the 200-slide PowerPoint decks or huge Excel sheets that we're using. Okay. So we need to make it bite-sized, for example. We need to have a communication program around it, basically, is what it boils down to.
Yeah. And being innovative in the form that we present.
In the form, in the design, in the packaging, while still keeping in mind that we're doing things in a methodological way. Quizzes, for example, confronting people with, disrupting them, positively disrupting them, showing them what it is that they know, and showing them what it is that they don't know. Once you see managers realizing, oh, I don't know this and I should, that's where they get curious. And then you can bring in, the details, the researchy stuff, but not up front as we used to be doing. So,
and is this part of the skill set of the nowadays market researcher?
Unfortunately not yet, I believe. I've got academic connections, and curriculums are starting to be revised and reviewed. But the creative part of it, the communication part of it is not in there, and that's unfortunate. So a lot of companies have to do it on their own, and that'll take a while. But I think there's starting to be a common realization that we need to move forward on that. Okay,
so that was point one. Second point you wanted to make is, what else do we need to do to prove our value?
Well, I think we need to, as I said, it's about, for me it's about extending the shelf life of the observations and the insights that we have. It's about increasing the return on insight. So we need to measure.
Yeah.
We need to make it a longitudinal program. We need to be able to show this is what you knew before, this is what you know after. And it's a very researchy approach, but everybody in marketing is trying to prove their ROI, so we should do exactly the same thing. Yeah. And for me, the enemy in this is ad hoc research, one shot created for that specific purpose. That's the enemy that we should be looking at in a way. You know?
I understand. Metaphorically speaking.
Metaphorically speaking, that's our enemy. That's what we should try to beat. We should go away from the ad hoc one shot to programmatic, if you want, research within companies, so that non-marketing people as well as marketing people are actually using what we're, in the end we're doing it for them. We're doing it to make the company to become more people-centric, not only consumer-centric.
And this sounds logical, but is this a natural step to make for market researchers? Because you're also almost moving to a meta level, right? You're not just doing your research, but then on a meta level, you're proving the value of your research. So you have to know much more about the impact, about the business decisions based on that.
Yeah, well, hopefully.
How does that work?
Yeah, it takes a couple things to do that. First of all, realizing it yourself as a market researcher, and I think everybody has to make up their own mind.
That's why we're doing this. Exactly. That's why we're spreading this message.
Yeah. So that's one point. The second point is there needs to be openness on the client side as well to let agencies in a way and say, this is what we have, can you help us out? And some agencies will be able to do that and others won't be able to do that. But that's the market, quote unquote, selection if you want. And then the third thing is for market research agencies, we need to go and look and hire people beyond people that were trained in research, even psychology and marketing. We need to go for product designers. We need to go for journalists.
And get them on board.
And get them on board and involved in research as a profession, if you want.
All right. If I may zoom in finally on that second point a little bit, because I know the next interview up is actually people from the client side. We have some interesting people from Unilever here at the desk. If an agency comes in to say like, well, you need to be very open to us, what is the business decision you're basing this? Won't they say, well, that's my job. That's why we are client-side researchers. That's what we do. You just do your job and give me the data.
They have all the right to say that, first of all.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's the way forward. I think collaboration is the ultimate, way to progress, if you want, for both ends. And it doesn't mean we have to take their jobs. But if we can add something to the puzzle, I like to work with ad agencies, for example, not because I think I can make better ads, but if there's some kind of overlap and they pick up a good idea, even if it's just one over the course of the year, we've done a great job. So it's about collaborating. It's not about taking each other's jobs. It's about reinforcing what we do. On both ends.
Cool. Just as a final question, what is your personal highlight for this Congress? What are you really looking forward to? We know you're moderating a session tomorrow, right, on the shopper and shopping behavior.
No, I'm presenting in that session.
Yeah. But what is your highlight?
The one I look forward to is Ralph Fiennes, the last keynote speaker.
The last keynote speaker
on Wednesday.
On Wednesday. Unfortunately, that is not broadcasted. Well, we are not here. It's broadcasted.
Well, I'm sure plenty of others will be interesting. I'm also re-interviewing Jordan Casey, who's a 15-year-old app developer, entrepreneur.
And we will be there.
Yes, that was a blast last year. That's a very sweet kid, and I look forward to interviewing him again.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Niels. Thank you for being here with us, and as a first guest on Esomar TV live at the exhibition floor. And enjoy the Congress. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I will. Thank you.
All right. And with Niels leaving, we know that now this is Esomar TV, and Esomar TV is interactive. As you might have scrolled down to the bottom of your screen, you see a little interactivity box, you see tweets on the side, and we have someone in the studio specifically for you to actually help you out with that and be on your side. Marcel van Overveld.
Good morning, Gerrit.
Hey,
good morning.
Can you explain a little bit to our viewers who just joined how they can influence what happens here in the studio?
Yeah, more than happy, more than happy. There are several ways. You can interact with us here on the show floor via Twitter using the hashtag EsomarTV, EsomarTV. So tweet them out, we pick them up, and if there's an interesting question or a funny comment, we will probably share that, right, Gerrit?
Well, we can see you have a mic, so you can interrupt anytime you want, right? That's the interruption microphone.
And then I want to show that maybe possibly on screen. Below the video player, where you can watch our feed, there's the interaction panel. There are 3 buttons where you can ask questions, chat with each other or with me, the moderator, and vote. We will open them when ready.
We'll open a poll.
Yeah, we will open a poll, and we invite you kindly to participate, but you're all about polling, so I'm not too worried about that.
All right.
So those are the two main methods.
Main ways to interact. And we'll be checking in with you now and then. If you send us a nice picture, for example, of how and where you're watching, we can put that on screen and show you to the global audience and give you a little fame in return.
Yes,
right?
I will give an example soon. So if you feel free to follow that.
Perfect. And with that, we go to our next guest. And if you have any questions, make sure you ask them. Because I'm joined at the table by BV Pradeep, welcome, and Stan Stanunathan, yes, from Unilever, both. Welcome very much. You are here representing the client side, an important part of this industry. And, well, we read and we hear market research is under pressure. We come out of a few years of large economical crisis, budgets are being cut down, focus on ROI, and there's word that large corporations slash their entire market research departments. You guys are both at Unilever. Are you still in your job?
Yes, I think I have one.
Yeah.
Stan, don't you?
Absolutely.
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 Yeah.
I have no doubts about that.
Do you recognize any of these developments? Is your department under pressure?
I think there has to be a fundamental differentiation between budget cut and reduction in research spend. They are two different things.
Okay.
Yes, the research spend is coming down. That doesn't mean the budgets are being cut, and therefore the research spend is coming down.
So it means the budget is spent differently?
No, the budget is spent, as we, do you have an iPhone with you? Yeah, and the price of iPhone over the last few years has not gone up. You get more features for the same price.
Okay.
And that's exactly what is happening to the research.
You guys have to deliver more for the same price.
You've got to deliver more for the same price. Therefore, our agencies have to deliver more for the same price. If you don't deliver more, then the price of what you offer comes down.
Exactly. Clear.
I think my point of view is you worded this as a challenge. I see that as an opportunity because it's two sides of the same coin. And one of the things to look at is the fact that around us, the ecosystem, whether the consumers or clients, has dramatically been changing and it's continuing to change. So at one point, for example, in marketing, we used to do an inside job, then we do a communication job to tell about our brand, and then we would expect them to go to the store and buy. Today, with the confluence of technology, you can actually do that in less than a few minutes.
Almost in real time, yeah.
Exactly. When you get onto the website and you can actually see that you're made aware of the brand and then there's a communication going on, you know what it is, and then you want to buy and there's an offer and it's all done. So with that happening, it is unleashing a lot of thought amongst people as to what can I potentially do. So what people are actually asking for, whether it's in the company or the consumer, is how can you get me more for what I'm paying, because technology enables that.
Yeah.
So I think we need to see that in a positive thing rather than say it as a challenge and put ourselves under pressure.
All right. And does that mean that you guys are working, how are you integrating this real-time data and this enormous online data with the more traditional, solid methodological ways and approaches?
The key word is integration. I don't think it is one versus the other. It is old and new, and not old or new.
All right.
And that's the way in which the whole world is going.
Can you share an example of how you guys are applying this in Unilever?
Yeah, I'm going to be talking about that example in our fireside chat, which is going to start next.
Which will be on channel 1. Yes.
Yeah, so yeah. I'll give that example. I think to me that's probably one of the best examples of how the old and the new can actually coexist. And that, unfortunately, results in lower cost to us, but much higher value to us.
Yeah, and perhaps then what are you guys doing internally to prove your value? Are you taking specific change?
I think internally, if you look at the business also is moving at a rapid pace. So people who used to spend a lot of time looking at the data, in fact, marketing used to say, give me the data, I will look at it. But things have moved. They just don't have the time for it. They have a lot of things to do as well. So more you move up the value chain in terms of adding, if you're able to give an insight and a recommendation, which they think is very sensible, they would rather take that on rather than go into all the data and try to dig it out. So there's a lot of work that's being done where the data source actually doesn't matter so much now. What matters is what's the insight you're bringing and how is it going to make a different action which will land a difference to the business. So that's what we need to be focusing on rather than where do I collect the data and this thing. Yes, of course you need to bring this together, but the focus should be on how do we convert that into action.
And what does that mean for your departments internally? Is that changing? Do you need to hire new staff with different skills?
No, it does. You know, if you look at the last 20 hires that we have done, very different people.
What kind of people are you
Very
hiring?
different people. I think, you know, to begin with, a lot of people whom we have hired recently are all millennials.
Younger people.
Younger people who are digital natives and people who are incredibly curious. I mean, I'm not saying that the people who are been with us for a long time are not curious. I'm one of them. You know, curiosity needs to be there across all levels. But then the newer people, you know, if you're not a digital native, and if you can't really sense what is happening around you, you could actually become redundant very quickly.
Exactly.
I think the way I would look at it is we are undergoing a lot of change in our personal lives as well. For example, if we were to book an airline ticket 15 years ago, you would call an agent, you'd go to a store and book. Today, we just got to get on the website, book the thing, look at the comparison of prices, everything. We do it for ourselves.
Yeah.
Now, I would urge all inside people to look at it as a change which is in our jobs. We need to upgrade ourselves. We need to look at things which are done differently. Your core value is in how do we transform all the data into something valuable for the business, which can give them a cutting edge, which will take them ahead. That's still the focus. That's what we have always done, and it's going to be the thing.
But the means are different,
the
faster,
end is the
online.
same. The end is the same.
End in the same. Yeah.
End is the same.
All right. Well, beautiful. Thank you for giving us a little preview into that. As you already mentioned, you guys are kind of in a hot seat because you're about to go on to room 1, which means that is for you in channel 1, where you can watch more in the fire chat.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
Ga eerst vol doen, zet maar live. And I'm back with Marcel because it's time, as he promised, for our first poll that we just pushed live. If you're watching, on the bottom of your screen, your interactivity box has now changed and the vote tab should become open. And the question we're asking, Marcel?
What field of application do you work in? And then you have 3 options, which are quite obvious.
Do you do research in the commercial field of application, in a social field of application, in a political environment, or other? Right?
Yeah,
we could have missed. We could have missed one. And the reason why we asked that is that I'm very proud and honored that we actually have 3 representatives of that field, with whom we're going to discuss what can actually happen if we get it wrong. So I'm moving back to my table, see if all my guests are ready, and see where we go. If anything happens here,
I'll let you know. Yeah, definitely.
Right. Good morning.
Hello.
I'm joined by Vicky Draper from AOL. Welcome. Jean-Marc Leger from Canada, the president of Leger Company, and you are the president of the Win Gallup Association.
It's a pleasure.
Right? And Eric Meerkamp, thank you very much. For the viewers who don't know you, you're representing the commercial field of research, you're representing the political environment, and Eric, you're representing the social field of research. Right. Well, I guess let's start with our opening question of this whole segment. Vicky, what happens if you get it wrong?
Well, I think in terms of what happens when, as a company, we get it wrong when we interpret the research, or we don't interpret the research and we don't apply the research. And as an example, with a lot of our shopping research, we found that people are shopping online all the time, and they're mostly doing it for emotional reasons, because they're bored or because they want to develop an expertise so they can share that information with others. And what happens in the digital space is that most brands and retailers tend to focus their experiences on more utilitarian things like finding the right price or product specs, and they're not engaging with people when 2/3 of the time they're shopping for emotional reasons. So as an example, if I'm sitting on the sofa and I'm watching TV and I'm bored with whatever's on television, I might turn to my tablet and start shopping in, say, the home decor category because I'm interested in decorating my apartment. And if the experience is boring, for example, many retail experiences just show maybe a bunch of sofas on a white background with different colors.
Very clearly listed, very easy to navigate.
Exactly.
Functionally optimized.
Very functional. It's giving me the prices. I can compare the colors, but that's not...
That's not why you're there.
That's not why I'm there. I'm there because I'm bored and I just want to see what's new.
Yeah.
And so it's
no
a missed opportunity.
And perhaps a lost client.
Exactly.
Exactly. So you're saying understanding the consumer behavior is essential in developing our sales funnels. Well, Jean-Marc, how is that when you do your research more in a political environment, like opinion polling and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, exactly. We're not as accurate as we were many years ago. Okay, so techniques change because you have different kind of techniques: internet survey, mobile survey, or robot call. Also, you have different kind of techniques, so it's not the same thing. But overall, as I could say, political survey is 1% of our business, but 99% of our trouble. Yeah. But we're accurate enough, to predict the information, despite the fact that the voters are more strategic. Same, the buyers or consumers are more strategic than it was, So that means they're less loyal to their trademark or to the political party, or they're waiting at the last minute, to make their choice. So as opposed to, it's more difficult to predict that. Over the years, we miss many times over the years, in the 40s and the 50s, and every time we have to revisit the science, how we could adapt to these new voters. So that's our job every day,
And I mean, what happens if you get it wrong? I always have the feeling that the opinion polls, especially close to the election, actually are an influencer of what's happening, right? If the poll shows that this party is getting really big, we then get a counter movement.
The main impact is on the voting turnout. If the polls are close. For example, in Canada, currently we will have an election October 19th. So last week, 3 firms published 3 different surveys. Internet survey says the left wing leads. So, the robot call, IVR technique, said the conservative leads. And the phone study said, no, the liberals leads. So, so you could have a lot of the information.
What does that mean for the value of research? Because if you're not careful, you become the laughingstock of the community,
but that's during the election process. At the end, the gap is vanishing, It's not the same thing. We're not so far at the end. But during the election campaign, you could see a lot of different trends. But of course, if we're wrong, the day after, we have to revisit our techniques, our science, of why we're wrong. During the last few years, we're not so far, but it's more difficult. Because our job is not necessarily to be accurate, it's to predict the final results. So that's the issue for a pollster.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much for sharing. Eric, you do research in the social field of... can you elaborate a little bit what kind of work you're doing?
Yeah, sure. I mean, our focus, we do all kinds of things, but a lot of it has been on citizen engagement. So particularly talking with people who otherwise you never hear from. So in hard-to-reach countries, Africa and elsewhere. So, the implication in the work we do often, if you get it wrong, that's really bad. I mean, they can have significant impacts on allocation of aid funding, for example, or major social initiatives that go awry because they don't really understand what's happening. And with a lot of good intentions, there's a lot of money put into things, but trying to measure the impact is actually becoming exceptionally important. So Bill Gates Foundation, billions of dollars, his one thing he's focusing on now, the main thing he's focusing on is not more money, it's on measurement. Because only when you measure and you understand what's having an impact or not. So when you get it wrong, best intentions, a lot of money can go in wrong places. But if you understand, what are the leverage points, that's key. We're presenting on Wednesday on a big study we did on same-sex marriage in like 50 countries, including here in Ireland. And part of what our colleagues who really ran the campaign here, the yes vote, are showing just how important data is in social campaigns, helping them understand where the influencers are. And I think actually it's an amazing opportunity for the market research industry now, because nowhere before has so much data been available from citizens to engage them in this. And I think it's frankly a leadership position that market research can take by realizing what we do every day, the data we have, is gold and exceptionally valuable in other worlds outside of just market research and consumer stuff, which we all know as well.
He's talking, we're all from America, okay? We think we are ahead in terms of technologies or measuring, but we're doing a lot of poll in Africa. And it's still a face-to-face interviews. It's still the fact that you have to choose randomly the respondent. And more than that, in some countries, you give them a gift. If they accept the gift, they have the obligation to say the truth. So that means our survey is more accurate in Middle Africa than it could be in Cincinnati or New York,
Exactly.
That's the truth today.
Exactly. And you say market research needs to take a leadership role, right? And that's basically what this segment, the value of research, is all about. Can you share some examples? I mean, we've clearly shown the impact. I mean, we're dealing with high, important decisions. What can we do to take that role? Any examples from your end, Vicky?
Well, an example, just thinking along the lines of the first question as well, is when you're thinking about digital KPIs and how you're measuring, it's important to, based on the research, let people know how they should interpret those KPIs, and often they're misinterpreted. So as an example is cart abandonment. So what happens is that retailers use cart abandonment as a measure by which they project revenue, and they don't like cart abandonment. They hate cart abandonment. And what we found from our research is that, well, maybe you're taking the wrong interpretation. And so we can help lead them in the right direction to take the right interpretation. That often when people are putting stuff in their carts, they're not intending to buy something, but they're using it as a holding place. They're using it to compare items, they're using it to hold stuff that they might come and buy later when their paycheck comes in, or they're using it to place things that inspire them or to show their spouse. And it's really high brand engagement that cart abandonment is measuring. And you might think that someone with very high cart abandonment or who leaves a lot of stuff in their cart actually has high engagement with your brand. Exactly. And so it's a matter of helping them interpret.
This becomes a huge opportunity.
Exactly.
Okay, very exciting. And we are presenting the three of you here as very clear silos.
Yeah, but
obviously you work in all the different fields. Can you elaborate a little bit on how you can learn from the different fields of application? What lessons can be drawn from opinion polling to commercial or to social?
Of course, we're using a lot of market research techniques in the polling industry, of course, to measure and to understand the behaviors of the voters, you know. And in the business side, you know, maybe it's not accurate as it was, but it's accurate enough to take a business decision. On the political side, sometimes it's a three-way race, like in Canada. So you must be sure which one is number one, number two. But as a pollster, we're really creative, you know, because currently we're using different techniques, and sometimes we don't have a representative sample. So that means they don't have margin of error. How could we be wrong if we don't have a margin of error?
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think it's also about sharing techniques.
Of course.
Because we all are in different fields of research, but we share the same techniques. And one thing that we found that is really useful or really productive when we're doing research is to meld different techniques together, because you get better answers. And so we can learn from each other the different techniques.
And just picking up on that, I'm helping organize the Esomar Radar Conference, which is in New York. Not to put a pitch in it, but you should go.
Yeah,
and
please mention.
The whole theme has really been around integration and bringing in these different skill sets. And you know, you're asking how can we have an impact. I would say data philanthropy being a really interesting way from the social sector, and realizing that a lot of the skill sets we have, which we take for granted, analytical thinking, is actually extremely valuable when you apply it often outside of those silos. It's really breakthrough thinking. Those people know so much more about so many things than we do, but often things we do every day is exceptionally valuable. So I think that's kind of for me, I'd put a challenge out to the industry, saying, you know, how can we have impact? And we have so much more information and skills that we realize are extremely valuable. So again, maybe I'm an optimist in that way, but I think there's a great opportunity
for it. It's a very upbeat
for it,
message,
you know?
but you feel on every side that this industry is under some pressure, right? If we don't change.
We are in a period of change, but that means opportunities.
Yep.
Our competitor in the polling industry is not our main competitor. It's Facebook, it's Google, who publish surveys, you know. So we have to compete. So the industry is different. The techniques is different. We have to be open to integrate all these new techniques. What's happening in the social media when we're talking live on TV, you know, it's important more than the survey we could do afterwards. So we have to integrate all this information. And at the end, to give the best information to our clients. So no matter where the data is coming from, we must be more insightful for our clients.
Well, let's use that a little bit. It's a nice little bridge, because Marcel just threw out a poll to our viewers, and he asked them, well, some folks, I've read a book about it, some folks in some very famous companies have been claiming that that whole market research doesn't work, because people don't say what they do, and they don't do what they say, and in the end we interpret it wrong, so we might as well get rid of it altogether. What would you say to them?
No.
No? Okay, and why not? Tell me.
It's just, you know, when you look at, for example, a company, and maybe they're developing an app, or maybe they're coming up with ideas for different new product ideas for different apps. And if they don't go out and ask the consumers what they think about it, then they won't know if it's actually viable or not, and end up wasting a lot of money producing apps or producing products that just are not going to succeed in the market. And so you need to talk to your consumers.
Yeah. And also, you know, you have a lot of information about the behaviors. Okay, so you could have on your mobile, but you need also to measure the attitude, the emotion of the people. So market research is necessary to understand what's behind the numbers.
The drivers are.
But things will change. A few years ago, when the movement of 3% arrived in our survey, clients said, oh, it was hysterical. What's happening? Today, when it's moving by 15%, we call that a moody day. It means emotional. Consumers are more emotional than it was a few days. So that's why we need to measure this perception about the population. We're doing that every day. But of course, it's not. A few years ago, it was only the poll. Currently, you have access to so many data. Polls is one of the data they have access to.
And I think we have to think differently about, market research has been very much, okay, we're building these questions and we have respondents, or even worse, completes. And I think we have to understand that relationship with the end person, whether it's a consumer, whether it's a citizen, whether it's an employee. And they are producing information voluntarily about themselves and are being asked. It's not like they're not talking, they're afraid to answer questions. But they're not going to do the 25-minute survey when you call them at dinner and say, drop everything and answer to us.
Unless you pay for.
Because and then sometimes you get what you pay for too.
Exactly.
I mean, you have to be careful as well. Then we're creating, so I think, yes, maybe some very traditional methods are changing and have to, but if we think of it more broadly, think of it at all of these sources of information, respect the respondent, or and that they are a key person, or even bring them in to co-develop. It's not just this looking in the rear view mirror sort of thing, what's happened, but helping us project and predict the future, what Jean-Marc was saying, I think is exactly the way we have to rethink it. And then there's lots of opportunity.
The consumer journey is more complicated than it was. He will explore first, so that will be the social media things. He will engage, that will be the polling industry. He will buy the product, so he will also experiment the product, and he will exchange on the social media. So it's not like it was, it's more complicated. So we need different techniques to understand the consumer journey.
And if companies base their whatever they're doing on assumptions of what always has been done, it's different now. And as an example, we did research looking at the auto purchase funnel. And the assumption in the auto industry, at least in the United States, was that it's a 6-month purchase journey. And what we found with our research is with technology and the instant access to information it gives you, it's now only 28 days. And we presented that in the industry, one of the CEOs of one of the big auto companies presented at a big conference, because that's a big deal and it makes a big difference for how you're going to reach those potential buyers.
Yeah. Well, I guess our viewers are all from the same industry, because they make similar comments. Try launching any marketing or new product launch without any data. So I guess we're still solid, we're still relevant, but we need to change and integrate, I guess. So that's a nice message. We will, our viewers will be able to access you. I think you're on tomorrow, right? And, about Hooked on Shopping.
Yes.
Very curious about that. And you guys will present on Wednesday, both on Channel 1. So if you want to see more of either Vicky, Jean-Marc, or Eric, of course, please tune in to Channel 1 either tomorrow or on Wednesday. And with that, let's look at a clip of what the world would be like without market research. Cool. All right, thank you very much. Okay. right, and I'm now back here at Marcel van Overveld. If you just joined us, Marcel is our social media moderator, and he's keeping an eye on #Esomar TV and also the interactivity box that's on the bottom of your page, right below your player. And Marcel, we're going to, in a minute, talk about communicating our insights and increasing the value of research to actually showcasing our insights in a much more visually attractive way.
Totally. Yeah.
I think through Twitter you just posted an assignment.
I did. And I would very much like our viewers or anyone watching anywhere in the world to tweet out a link via the Esomar TV hashtag where you share your most cool, impactful infographic or visual, of course, on your profession. Let that be clear.
Yeah. And if you don't have Twitter, you can also upload it in the chat box, which is right below the player.
Yeah, that's your option. And please send them out, send them in, so I can share that with the world and your peers here in Dublin or anywhere in the world. So please send them in. Yeah.
All right. I'm going to talk with Lucy, and if you spot anything interesting, please interrupt.
I will
He's
do.
Asking people
Thank you,
to
Gerrit.
send in.
Well, Lucy is just chatting with people who walk by, and that's fine because that's how this goes, right? We're in the middle of the exhibition floor.
Pretty
People
noisy.
are walking behind us, and they're free to step in. Lucy Davison, hi.
Hi,
You're the
hi.
managing director of Keen on Mustard Marketing.
Yeah, keen as mustard.
Keen as mustard.
It's a very old-fashioned English phrase. It means super keen.
Super keen.
Really sharp.
As mustard,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's right.
You've been here for a while. Yesterday, you were doing a workshop. I was walking by, and it looked like a room which was torn apart. There were markers, there was paper on the wall, there was everything. It was all about communicating our insights. Can you explain a little bit about what you did yesterday?
Absolutely. I really believe that we're in the communications industry rather than just the insights industry, because the value of our insights really only exists in the way they're communicated and the effective action that is taken from them. So our workshop really looks at the principles of good communication, and we try to help researchers think about how to project and communicate the insights that they get. So it's very, very interactive. It's really good fun. It adds a lot of different thinking and creativity into the process, and people come away quite, I think they have a good time.
And what is this most, like, if you could highlight one main takeaway to our viewers, what is the first thing that I need to understand as a market researcher when I get down this path of...
Well, that you need to think of the communication of your insights as a campaign. Think of it like a communication project in the way that an advertising agency or a design company would, rather than think about it as just the end point of the understanding process. Researchers are really, really good at understanding, but it's a different process and different part of your brain for communicating.
Yeah.
So that's really the principle of the whole thing, how to think about the communication rather than just the process of understanding and gathering those insights.
And is it possible to join these talents inside one person? Isn't it you're either a left brainer or a right brainer, and the one is really analytical?
No, I absolutely believe that everybody can learn to use the different parts of their brain and to integrate that. Some people are naturally better at it, clearly. But I absolutely think we can give people tools and processes which they can follow. I mean, simple things like a creative brief, thinking about your audience, thinking about the targeting, how you're going to get your message across. Those are simple tools that anyone can use, and they have a huge impact when they're applied in business.
Can you share an example with us of a researcher or a project where this was done really well?
Well, I think there's hundreds of examples of fabulous market research communicated, but most of that is absolutely top secret. So it's because most of it is like, very, very serious top-line business information. Having said that, we've got something here which is looking at, we've done some research into the process and path of a career in market research, which is extremely complicated and multifaceted. And what we've done is we've put together an infographic of that, which is a tube map, and there's also an interactive version of it which you can go and see online. And you click on version, it's basically like a tube map, and there's various points on the map which shows where you can go and other connections that you can make. So it's a really simple infograph with an enormous amount of data and information, simplified and clarified, and it's really beautiful. You can go and look at it.
Exactly. Perhaps we can go look at it later on. I don't know if the cables are long enough, but we'll try to do a different show.
I'll try and bring it over here.
You mentioned the word infographic.
Yes.
We just asked our viewers to actually share some of the coolest infographics that they see, and you mentioned the word simple.
Yes.
could there be a tension here that I'm doing this really, really well done research with very insightful insight, very complex, and now I have to sketch it up in a little simple infographic? Am I not dumbing down both my research and my audience?
I'd say you're laddering up. So you only get to the top point of the story, if you like, by having done a huge amount of thought and analysis. And then you need to think about the structure and process of your story itself. And so what you might communicate might be the tip of that iceberg. But I think it's absolutely important. I mean, what we always say is the MASH rule, which that every piece of communication should be memorable, actionable, specific, and human. And it's very hard to be human.
The human kind of cuts off the tables and the...
Absolutely. Yeah. It's really hard to be human if you've got a pile of paper like that, or just like tons and tons and tons of charts and loads of data. And we're all bombarded all the time. So just thinking of the audience of your communication, thinking of them as a human being and how they feel about having all this information thrown at them and how are they going to retain something is really, really important. And I was mentioning to you earlier, I found this fantastic quote. I think it was Warren Buffett.
Yeah.
And he said he would never invest in an idea that you couldn't communicate with a crayon. So that
highlighting
is
the importance
absolutely
of
the
visual
simplicity is absolutely vital, and the visual side is absolutely vital. So.
And just to double check, who should be in charge of this? Who's doing this, right? In the whole chain of the data collector, the research designer, the
Well, at the moment, to be honest, most of the really great examples are being done by data journalists.
All right.
Which is a slightly different animal. But having said that, I feel it's really important for researchers to really embrace this. And I feel that researchers can, in teams, develop the skills to ensure that they can do this stuff really, really well. So I don't feel that researchers in themselves can always be great graphic designers, for example, but I feel that the researcher can work out and tell the story, and then they can work with graphic designers or data visualizers or artists or cartoonists or filmmakers.
Exactly.
To pull it all together.
But then, who's paying for that?
Well, actually, there's an enormous amount of talent out there. I mean, the money that the clients spend on, an enormous tracking study, a tiny, tiny proportion of that, if that was spent on communicating it effectively, it would have way more impact.
Yeah. However, we are also talking here about budgets being under pressure, agencies having to deliver more for the same budget. I think some people think, oh, and now I have to start to hire the graphic designer and the animator and the cartoonist.
I think it's absolutely essential. I think they do, yeah.
Otherwise, you're just out of business.
I think you'll find that some of the processes that we're helping people learn save so much time that actually you're saving money in the end.
Yeah.
And the money that you're saving you can put towards getting talent in to help you communicate. Because if you plan things really well up front and think about your story and the communication of your story at the outset, then you find you're not going on a fishing trip, you're going on a hunting trip. The data that you're getting is fitting with your story, and you've got your framework in place already. So in fact, you're saving an awful lot of time and effort going through piles and piles and piles of data. Yeah. Exactly.
So it might be a hard sell, but once they're hooked and once they see it, you don't want anything else.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, Lucy, thank you very much for sharing this insight with us. It's a very clear and powerful message. I think everybody should adhere to it. And with that, I don't know if our viewers can hear this, but there's a bell going through the exhibition. There she is, which means that the audience here in Dublin needs to get back into the rooms where the next session is going to start. For now, in the next segment, there's only a session going on Channel 1, Room 1. So that's where you need to head to. We are closing down here on Channel 3, and we'll be back with you on 12:20, where we have a long show, about 75 minutes, talking about inspiring methodologies. I'm very much looking forward to that one. We have all kinds of different methodologies and different speakers from elsewhere in the tracks right here in the studio. And we're going to start with a Dragon's Den. So we actually start with 3 pitches of 3 very new, innovative methodologies that you can then vote on which one you like best. So please make sure you're back by 12:20. That's Ireland time. We're on GMT, I think. So make sure you put your clock on the right time zone. And I hope to see you back 12:20. Let's go to Room 1.